What's up, guys? Welcome into the Clocker Sports Podcast. I am your host, Josh Buckalter. Be sure to follow me on X/Twitter, on Instagram at Josh G Buck. That is JoshGBuck. Also follow the show. Check out the website. That's clockersports.com. CLOCKERSPORTS.com. That's also at Clocker Sports on Instagram, on Twitter /X, on TikTok, even on LinkedIn, and of course the YouTube channel is at Clocker Sports as well. A lot to get to. A very noteworthy day in Bears training camp today. We got to see the team in pads for the first time this year in training camp. This obviously is the second week of camp. Remember, they had 4 practice days last week. First day of the 4-day block was on Monday, and it started off well enough. We heard from Ben Johnson before the practice session. Rather, he discussed Kyle Monangai dealing with a soft tissue injury. Didn't specify beyond that. Rarely does. Bears teams are not required to issue injury reports, full length injury reports daily at this point of the season. So it's really up to coach's discretion how much they want to divulge. Monangai had missed 2 or 3 practices before it even before it even got brought up. Johnson did not sound worried about it, and sure enough, Monangai was out there on the field participating. I don't think he went through a full practice, didn't get his full workload. Did not see him do many, if any, team drills, but it was good to see him back out there. Again, the Bears are dealing with some stuff elsewhere, but it was encouraging to see Monangai make a swift recovery and return to the practice field for the Bears, even if it was in a limited capacity, despite, like I said, him still dealing with the stuff and the questions beforehand. It was good to see him back out there in the end. The Bears are also monitoring, Johnson said, DeAndre Swift. They want him to be fresh for the end of the season. That's very important. Remember, the Bears had, I think, the 3rd ranked run game this past season in 2025. So they're trying to, that offense is built around that. More about that in a second. But Swift is a guy who had a resurgent season last year, career year. Remember, this was a guy who was coming in with questions about if he'd be the kind of back that the Bears wanted, and then was questioned about being the kind of back that Johnson would want last year when he was hired. They have a history together in Detroit. Johnson cited that history, but also it sounds like whatever was there, maybe didn't even involve Johnson when the Lions traded Swift, but they have clearly gotten back on the same page here in Chicago, and so that's something to keep an eye on because the Bears will need to carry, I think, or lean on their run game even more this year. They did it last year, but they also got away from it at times. I think they're going to have to be more consistent with it this coming season. Now, Johnson did say that the Bears starters are to be determined. He is to be determined. Whatever the decision is to be determined on whether or not the Bears starters will play in their first preseason game against the Cleveland Browns. I wouldn't imagine that you'll see them much, if you see them at all. I don't expect them to play. The TBD sounds like good, playing good with the league and not shutting down the ticket sales before the game even arrives. But I don't expect to see, especially how today's practice went. I think the Bears will lean a lot heavily on practice reps, joint practice reps, and things of that nature more than they will in-game stuff before they get to the actual real thing in the regular season. So that's also something to keep an eye on, but not until we get to that point. We still have a couple of weeks yet before we actually get there. Personally, now today was a very heavy emphasis on one-on-ones and on 7-on-7. So here's the thing about those. I am very interested to see what happens, but I'm not sure that they provide the value that other drills might in terms of team drills or even position stuff and seeing how guys are moving. With 7-on-7s, there's no line, so the quarterback gets to sit in the pocket and deliver the ball without much of a rush. There is a simulation, but it's not the same thing. We heard Tyrique Stevenson talk about that after practice today, saying that 7-on-7s and one-on-ones are geared for the court or for the offense rather. He did say that it motivates the defense, can motivate the defense, but he definitely let it be known that he feels like it's more of an offensive oriented thing. And I agree. It's set up for them to win. They know what they're doing. You have to guess, so you'd have to be great in recovery to be able to stick with a lot of the decisions. A lot of these athletes at this level, anyway, let alone in a situation where you're left with no help. And again, like I said, guessing. So you won't see me reporting much on the 7-on-7 or the one-on-one stuff just because I don't feel like that's as much value as we get from seeing team drills, hearing what they have to say, and things of that nature. So just wanted to get that out there because it was a heavy one of those days, and I didn't report about it as much as I do other days. That is why, because I'm just not a big 7-on-7 or one-on-ones in practice, situational type of person. I don't doesn't translate as much to me, but obviously to others it does, and so I'm not knocking it. That's just why I don't cover that as much. Obviously, though, back to the practice field. Ben Johnson did say that they added a significant amount of workload, responsibilities, I guess would be the better term, to second-year tight end Colston Loveland's plate. Loveland came in and impressed as a rookie, even after a delayed injury riddled, start coming off that surgery, shoulder surgery from college. Did not get started until training camp, so it kind of took him a while to get going. This year, he's hit the ground running. It's shown. Caleb Williams, we talked about that a couple episodes ago, said that he wanted to make Loveland the best tight end in the NFL. Loveland addressed that. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's understandable. They've raved about Loveland and what he can do. We've seen what Loveland can do. If you haven't, you should, because it is impressive. And so that's a fitting way to go about it for Johnson and the Bears to try to get their first round pick even more involved this coming season. Johnson also raved about Garrett Bradbury. This was an interesting one because we just discussed this on the position battles episode. I think that was the last episode. And Bradbury is in a quote unquote competition with rookie second round pick Logan Jones. Now, I said before, Jones hasn't gotten much, if any, reps with the ones. It's been the Bradbury show. And when you hear Johnson talk about how intelligent, how they're rocking and rolling with Bradbury in there at the pivot, and then you hear a guy like Jonah Jackson rave about how smart Garrett Bradbury is, and you hear Caleb Williams talk about it and things of that nature, it very much leans into what I already felt was going to be the case, and that is that it's Bradbury's job to lose. And I don't mean that the Bears are waiting for him to stumble. I mean, he'd have to go out there and probably bomb for a while consistently for them to consider moving in a rookie at a very pivotal position, the pivot in Jones. But as of right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. We've seen nothing to suggest that Bradbury will fail. And also, former Bears legend Olin Kreutz tweeted out in response to a fan that if you stick him between two of the better guards in the NFL and maybe arguably the best guard combo in Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, that Bradbury could be just fine. He's an undersized guy, not the strongest guy, can be overpowered, but those two guys are. Thuney is not really a power guy, more of a technician. Jonah Jackson is a mauler. But they're two of the better guards regardless, and again, arguably the best guard combo in the league. So you got those two guys in there, and that leaves Bradbury to kind of focus on his job as much as and much less than worrying about other aspects of the pass rush or the defensive line coming at him on any given play. So, lastly, Johnson also pushed consistency for cornerback Tyrique Stevenson. There's some more about Stevenson. That's been a consistent theme for him. Coaches wanted him to focus more, have better consistency on the field. Mental lapses have been the thing for him for a couple of years now, really since he entered the league. But they've kind of taken the forefront in his story, and I'm sure that he wants to change that. So we'll talk about more of that in a second, though, because he did take the podium. And I think there's an interesting situation that is probably a long shot for him at this point in his career, for the Bears and where they are right now. But it's definitely something to keep under your hat just because of how his background and what the team is kind of currently facing heading into, like I said, starting their second week of training camp practice. So after practice from Jonah Jackson, he also lauded Garrett Bradbury. He talked about the run game being essential in Ben Johnson's office. Was asked about the install and tweaking it and how big it is for them to get that advantage, that head start on being able to learn their run game without having pads on last week. He said it's pivotal because that's the key to Johnson's offense. So he also praised Colston Loveland, said Colston was a grown man entering the league and remains that way. And then talked about the growth of Darnell Wright, right tackle. Talked about the nonchalant approach Wright has taken with his contract situation, saying that's kind of an old lineman thing to be letting your work do the work for you, the talking for you even. And so, he's more comfortable. You can tell that Jonah Jackson is a lot more comfortable in his second year with the Bears as he was. And all these guys are getting acclimated in year one under Ben Johnson and seeing if they were going to be around, if they were going to fit the mold of what Johnson and the new coaching staff would want. Now these guys know what they expect, and they know if they are up meeting the standard. They know if they need to do more to meet the standard. So that has been a prevalent thing when guys are discussing anything at the podium. I thought throughout this entire process, this off season. So we talked to Colston Loveland. He talked about the comments that Williams made about him wanting to make him the best tight end, and said it's reciprocal. He wants to also make Williams the best QB in the league, and he's talked about his work ethic. Asked about that work ethic that Johnson praised and raved about, and he said he just doesn't want to be outworked. He relayed friendly competition he has with Bears wide receiver J.P. Richardson, says that they never want to be outdone. They want to have that edge over each other at the end of every day, and so that pushes them both. It started on the golf course, but it's bled into the building. And I think that's a positive thing to have. That's why you have practice squad guys, and you often look at rosters, every roster, and you could pick out a guy and be like, why does this guy still have a position, a spot? Things like this. Camaraderie is huge. It helps get through tough times. It helps, ease tension in locker rooms and things like that. So that's an example of that I think kind of may fly under the radar, but definitely should be paid attention to, because it's something that it shows you what kind of person Colston Loveland is, but also the fact that he's finding other ways to keep himself motivated aside from just what the coach is telling him to do or things of that like that. It's individual, and it's something that he's made interesting. It's an activity more than it is a chore, and that's a positive. Um, Tyrique Stevenson, his was probably one of the more interesting ones. He talked about the critiques that have been levied against him about his focus and his concentration. Says that that's the thing. He knows that it's not talent. It's definitely a mental hurdle for him, and how that's been the theme of his tenure over the past couple of years. He's definitely eager to change that. He said that he wasn't worried about free agency last year when the Bears were changing over the room and who might be brought back. Remember, he lost his starting spot as the right corner to Nashawn Wright, the Pro Bowler. He had been filling in for Jalen Johnson at the left cornerback spot before Johnson returned from his injuries, leaving Stevenson on the bench. And so he's kind of been fighting an uphill battle ever since that Washington Commanders game where he kind of lost his concentration and got beat for the Hail Mary that just ended the Bears season. Really, their whole entire good momentum just was downhill from that point on. But Stevenson has been trying to battle through it. Bears have not given up on him, and that's an encouraging thing. He said he's close with secondary coach, cornerbacks coach Al Harris. Beyond football, they are family guys, and he's learning a lot from Harris about how to be a father. He says he wants to be the best cornerback in the building, out next to Jalen Johnson. High praise for Jalen Johnson. Believes that Johnson is back to being that Pro Bowl caliber cornerback that he was before his injuries last year. Johnson said he's still working towards it. Stevenson said he might be at least close to it, but he does see the signs of Johnson returning to form, which is a great thing for the Bears, especially because they're getting beat up pretty bad in that secondary, especially at nickel and then safety spots. We'll talk about that more in a second, because I want to get to a couple more things with Stevenson here. He said that he's seen more confidence from Caleb Williams in his throws in the offense. That's encouraging. Malik Muhammad is a guy who is a dog. He could be an answer at nickelback with Kyler Gordon injured and some of the other developments that have been taking place there. We have not seen much of that, especially not with the starters yet. But there's a lot of ways to go, and a lot of things can still change. A lot of developments can still pop up along the way. Muhammad Bears 4th-round pick, cornerback out of LSU, a really good, talented player, willing to play press coverage. Stevenson said tells him that he has to be willing to be flexible and play off as well. But that setup, right, with Muhammad and some of the other options, it had me wondering if the Bears got desperate enough, and I don't think that they're there now. If they got desperate enough, would they move Tyrique Stevenson to safety? And the only reason why I even thought about that today was because of the news of Kobe Bryant. Bryant suffered a injury while jostling for a ball against tight end Cole Kmet, went down in a heap. Frustrated, visibly emotional on his way onto the cart and then out of the practice field. Come to find out, he will be out for 8 to 10 weeks. That's the rough projected estimate, with a hyperextension knee, a little bit of a fracture, I believe, in there, and bone bruise. Those kind of things. We saw Kyle Long tweet about that on X. I retweeted that. Go ahead and check that out on X at Josh G Buck. But Kyle Long talked about how the bone bruise is the painful part. It's much more worse than a tendon and ligament, and just giving a rough estimate of what the Bears and Bryant could be looking at on his route back. Tweeted out as well on Josh G Buck on X. The timeline will put Bryant's return back at around week 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles, or in week 5, I think that's against the Green Bay Packers. You want him to be back before that Packers game. I don't see him, if he gets clear that week, I can hardly imagine they would put him back on the field in a game where they'll be facing a lot of speed. The Packers receiving core definitely has got speed to it. The Bears brought Bryant in to be better in coverage, but that version of Bryant, can't be sure that he'll be at 100%. And so that'll be a situation to monitor. They will face the Carolina Panthers. They will face the Minnesota Vikings weeks 1 and 2 without Bryant, and we'll see from there. So it doesn't seem like they would be in desperation mode right now. But if they were to get in that mode, would they consider moving Stevenson to safety? This is a guy who did play corner, nickel, and safety in college, so it's not out of the question. It's not something that he hasn't done in his football career. Obviously, doing that at the NFL level is a much different task. But Bryant is a guy who moved from cornerback to safety. And it got me, like I said, got me thinking. Stevenson's trying to find his niche, trying to find his solidify his role as an NFL player. And you just wonder sometimes if that moving around. Al Harris is a guy who didn't play traditional cornerback role his entire career. So it's just a nice mix, and that's what kind of brought the thought to my head about, man, would they ever consider moving Stevenson to safety? Now, that was a consideration, I think, discussion way back when. We've heard discussions about Kyler with previous staffs. I'm not sure. I am not sure with this staff would consider that. Like I said, that's a drastic change. Moving to Stevenson, a guy who's been in the league for 3 years now, in his fourth season, to move him to safety without uh, that being the pre-planned type of thing, and not really having a replacement right now. Opposite of Johnson that you can rely on, I think it'd be too risky. But again, this was a mental exercise about what would it take maybe for them to get to that point, to be that desperate to actually consider moving Stevenson back there. On the field, before we cover a little bit more about the safety options and the depth and cornerback as well, because I do want to go through some of the ones that are available in free agency. We'll focus on the safeties because we know Bryant's out for some time. The Bears also saw quarterback Terrell Smith exit the field early. No word or updates on what his issue is. It may not be anything serious, so I won't delve too far into corners this episode. We'll save that for tomorrow's episode if there is an update on Smith's status from the coaching staff. No Ben Johnson until Thursday, so we might have to wait a while before we hear any updates on Smith. But the fact that there was nothing in the wake that I have seen, at least, maybe there is. If there is, drop it in the comments. Let me know. Be sure to, the internet never fails to correct somebody when they make a mistake. So if it did go out and I just didn't see it, that's, go ahead and let me know about that as well. But the situation at safety is much more dire than it is at cornerback. And really at nickelback is what the Bears are looking at. So some of the field notes before we get to that, though. Braxton Jones was back with running with the ones at left tackle. I don't think Jones has done anything to disprove that he should be the starting left tackle. I think maybe the Bears are wanting to see what they had in the other guys, but to this point, and it really could be because they haven't had the pads on, they haven't done anything live except for today. Uh, Jones has done nothing to show that he doesn't deserve to be get the first crack at the starting job. Now, whether he keeps it, we don't know. He lost it twice last year, so we'll see if he can maintain it this year. I've been a Braxton Jones fan. He's a very locked in guy, very intelligent guy, very candid with what's going on with him and his situation. And so you root for players like that, but you also want to see the team be successful. So the best option is to play, regardless of any sentimentality or things of that nature. But so far, that's been Jones. I'm a guy who didn't look overmatched. Looks like he did last year. Doesn't look like a left tackle. And then Jedrick Wills is a guy who got some more run with the ones, but mostly ran with the twos today. But he's looking like, you see the form that he had. You see why he was a first round pick. Remember though, Wills is the guy who played right tackle in college and moved over to the left side of the NFL. Just one of the more interesting stories, but has not played football in a while. Has battled injuries. This is kind of him, I think, really getting his feet back under him, and then he can be a fallback option for the Bears if Jones is unable to hold up, protecting Williams' blind side. Key battle there, along with the center position, obviously on that offensive line. We talked about that in the position battles episode yesterday, so go ahead and rehash that if you want to check that out on at Clockwork Sports on the YouTube channel, also on Spotify as well. Other field notes: Cam Lewis came out of his nickelback one role. Remember, he had been splitting those reps with Jalen Jones. There's been a little bit of back and forth between who's leading who in each day. I'm pretty sure there's been Lewis most of the time, but I saw a lot of Jones early. I've seen some more Jones of late. And then, of course, today there was heavy Jones because you had to move Lewis back there next to rookie first round pick Dylan Thieneman, who the Bears hope would be able to learn alongside Bryant, but he's going to have to wait for that while Bryant is maybe coaching him up from the sideline or whatever in the locker rooms between practices and whatnot. But he won't be on the field to help him along, and so that's a blow in that regard as well. Remember, the Bears retooled that secondary room. Kevin Byard's gone. Jaquan Brisker's gone. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a safety who played nickelback for them, he's gone. The Bears are replacing Pro Bowler at quarterback and Deshaun Wright. There's a lot of turnover in that secondary, and to lose one of the key centerpiece, really, because you can't guarantee that Thieneman was going to be there. You can go and purchase and sign a Bryant in free agency. To lose him is 3-year, $40 million contract. That's a big blow. That's a very big blow. So it's a significant situation. We'll see how the Bears decide to handle it. There was, like I said, Jalen Jones moved into the nickelback spot. Hadn't seen him there much before this season, so I'll be interested to see if he holds it down. The Bears have other options they can turn to. Muhammad, like I mentioned, Josh Blackwell is a guy who could end up logging some time there before all is said and done as well. He was an option way before when, and then we still don't know when Kyler Gordon is going to come back off the PUP list. That's going to be something to monitor too. But the Bears are definitely feeling the pressure, the hits already in the secondary. Remember, safety Elijah Hicks, who opened the offseason program as the starter next to Kobe Bryant, went down and it's on the PUP list as well. So the Bears are really up against it in terms of depth at their safety spot. They only have one other player besides Lewis who started games in the NFL. That's Anthony Johnson. He has all of 4 starts. But between Blackwell and Jones at the nickelback or a corner, they've got 6 starts total, or 8 starts total rather. Jones has 6, and Blackwell has 2, so they can kind of have more experience with the Bears and their teammates than some of the other options would. But that safety spot, man, it is not looking good right now. That's not to say it's dire, but the depth is definitely going to be a question and something that I would expect the Bears will explore addressing or and adding to. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're comfortable with Skylar Thomas and Javarius Owens, Anthony Johnson, and those guys back there. But I can't imagine that is the case with a team that's banked and build its offseason on being a more consistent defense, even if they're not as flashy, hoping for the flash though, but they want to be more consistent first and foremost. That's tough to do when you lose your quarterback and your secondary and Kobe Bryant for an extended period of time. Standouts today, Jade Walker, Xavier Thomas, Salvon Ahmed. That's 2 of the 3 guys that I've been touting all offseason and up to this point. We had the Jade Walker interview, Clocker Sports Podcast. Go ahead and check that out. The numbers are doing great there. You guys are loving that episode, and I love that you love it. So go ahead and check that out. Run it up some more, and we'll try to get some more to you before the training camp is over and then throughout the season as well. Salvon Ahmed's a guy I've been telling you for a couple of episodes now. Watch out, man. Every time he touches the ball, the guy's just ripping off chunk plays. Chunk play, chunk play, chunk play. He catches the ball. He's got a history with the coaching staff. Running backs coach Eric Stuzville was his position coach in Miami with the Dolphins. And Ahmed's got good size. He's going to be he looks like he's your RB3 as of right now. I don't see any reason why that should change. And I was definitely early on the train. Maybe not the first person, but I was early on the hype train for what Salvon Ahmed could be as an RB3. I'm not suggesting that he could be taken over for Kamanun guy or usurp DeAndre Swift in the pecking order. No, this is an RB3 projection, not the most sexy position or role out there on the field, but definitely a vital one considering how much wear and tear and considering Johnson's comments about Swift and what Monangai is battling right now. So, and then finally, let's get to some of these options because I do want to go through what we have available, what the Bears have available to them in free agency if they decide to go that route. I don't expect them to do it right away, but I can see them exploring it and keeping some names under their hat. Of course, I'm not an insider like that. I don't at all. I don't talk to polls and have the line to the bat phone like that. But there are options, and I could imagine that the options would be much more appealing than what the Bears have in the building right now, knowing that they're going to be without Bryant for 2 months plus, or and through some vital games, if that's some divisional games possibly as well. Well, at least one, but possibly multiple divisional opponents. So the top safety available would arguably be Donovan Wilson. 31 years old, 15 starts in 15 games last season, 71 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble for the Dallas Cowboys. That's another connection with Al Harris that I think you have to explore. If the guy gets the Al Harris seal of approval, I have no qualms, and that's going to come up very big in a minute because there's another target for a corner that I think could be an option, but a flyer at best, and somebody that I again would have to get the Al Harris seal of approval before. If I was the Bears, I would feel comfortable even thinking that he could be a reliable option at this point in his career. Moving on down, though, continuing with the safeties list, and these are not in any particular order, just in the order that I was looking at the Spot Track free agency list. Jabril Peppers, 31 in October. He had 2 starts last year, 14 games, so he's the least experienced in terms of starting, not least experienced, but had the least amount of starts of this group last season. That's all this is last year. Don't want to go too far back because these are all older guys for a reason. Guys that would be on teams if they were the difference makers that they were in their heyday. They're not anymore. Doesn't mean they can't help, but that's why they're still available. 2 starts, 14 games, 16 total tackles, 1 forced fumble for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jordan Poyer, 35 years old, 9 starts in 10 games, 70 total tackles, 1 reception rather, and a half a sack for the Buffalo Bills. You had his teammate, Taylor Rapp, former Los Angeles Ram and a Super Bowl champion. 29 in December. He had 26 total tackles in Buffalo this past season. So, and didn't start, but I think 6 games. All 6 he started, but he only played like 6 games last year. So he's been banged up. And then you have Xavier Woods, a guy who is going to be 31 or is 31 years old, 10 starts, 11 games, 39 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack for the Tennessee Titans. Now, of that group, it's definitely Wilson who is the top option. I'm not sure that any of them are, overly exciting, like I said, but the big thing is the Bears will have to balance a guy who's probably going to want to start because you don't want to bring in someone who's inexperienced and doesn't have starting experience in case you have to turn to them. But how staunchly are they going to look for an opportunity to start, and then are they going to be comfortable giving that job back up to Kobe once he gets back out there? That's going to be something that the Bears have to navigate. Oh yeah, 6 games for Taylor Rapp, like I thought. It's not easy. It's not an easy sell for veterans. You know, you get there's a certain point in players' careers where they get pride and they are hoping to maintain their run that they were on and continue in the role. It can be difficult to come to grips with that. That's why you see some of these older players hold off until a starting spot emerges. That could be the Bears, but Bears will not have that spot open all season. So that's why there could be some hesitation from the player side. But that's your options. Not overly thrilling, not the worst options. You could definitely convince me on a Donovan Wilson and maybe even an Xavier Woods, but maybe not Jabril Peppers. Jabril Peppers is a guy who reminds me of Gardner Johnson. That's not a slight. That's to say that you bring him in for a specialized role more than you do for the back safety and kind of the versatility that the Bears want to have. I'm not sure that you're going to get that in any of these options, but he's definitely a guy that I think that despite his ability to play multiple positions, is probably best in that nickel back role and that pseudo quasi linebacker role when you go to 5 DBs. Then cornerback options. Remember also Stevenson is that long shot, long shot option at safety as well. Cornerbacks though, a little bit different here. There's some guys that have some team familiarity. That's why I do want to touch on it. I don't want to go too far until we'll cover it more in depth tomorrow if they are going to be without Smitty for any extended period of time. But as of right now, I do see a few options that can stand out. Kenny Moore, 31 years old, 7 starts in 14 games, 55 tackles, 1 interception, a touchdown, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles for the Indianapolis Colts last year. The biggest knock about Kenny Moore, he's going to want to be a starter. I'm not even doubting that, but he's also a smaller guy, 5'9". Now, Cam Lewis is 5'9", and nickelback, he's not even really a natural nickel like that. But the Bears have clearly prefer a bigger nickel. Kyler is a bigger nickel, 5'11", 6 foot, depending on where you look at the measurement. So I'm not sure if Kenny Moore fits what the Bears want, but they could certainly do far worse than a guy who has been one of the preeminent nickelbacks over the past few years and is just looking for an opportunity. Now, his option to be here would probably depend largely on how far off the Bears feel Kyler Gordon is. They, again, won't update much. Hasn't seemed like he's very close in terms of since camp started. It looked like he was getting closer, but the fact that they put him on the PUP list indicates that he could be a little bit further out than it seemed. So there's uncertainty there. But Moore will be the top nickelback option, not corner, top nickelback option if the Bears do pursue an outside nickel for their defense. Now, a couple of them that with some team ties here. The top one is Marshawn Lattimore, played for the Washington Commanders last year. He's 30, 27 tackles, 1 pick, 1 fumble recovery for the Washington Commanders. But he has a connection ties to Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. Played for Allen when Allen was the DC and head coach out in New Orleans for the Saints. So there's a history there. And I'm not sure about their history. Maybe it's not great, but there is a connection. We know the Bears were linked to Alontae Taylor, for he signed elsewhere. Tennessee Titans, if I'm not mistaken, in free agency this past offseason. So Allen has definitely tried to, or they've been linked to some players with Allen ties. Cam Jordan, pass rusher this offseason, before he went back to New Orleans. Marshawn Lattimore could be a guy that could fit for the Bears if they need a corner. And that would be if something were to happen with Tyrique, they don't trust Tyrique or whatever reason, Lattimore's a guy who could slide in there. Don't see him being a nickel, but I told you, Stevenson has played the nickel. If the Bears get desperate enough, they could try to bump him inside and see if he can be more of a physical version of a nickelback than the traditional version. Another one, Trevon Diggs, Dallas Cowboys corner, former Dallas Cowboys corner, makes him an Al Harris connection. He split last year between Dallas and the Green Bay Packers. He also has not looked good for the past couple of years, maybe longer than that. He is 28 years old in September, 27 tackles this past season, 7 starts in 9 games, split between, like I said, the Cowboys and the Packers. But that Al Harris connection, if Al Harris gives him the seal of approval and he is convinced that he is healthy enough, I see no reason why you wouldn't bring a guy who's been a pick machine, first of all, and is also 6'2" and has started plenty of games for a high-profile team, right? One of the highest-profile team in the league. Could be an option, but that's only if you get the seal of approval, just because injuries and performance have not been inspiring over the past couple of seasons for Trevon Diggs. Next, you have Nick McLeod. If that sounds familiar to Bears fans, it should. That's because McLeod was with the Bears last year, 28 years old. He started 4 games, appeared in 15, 27 total tackles. Now, he did not fare incredibly well, But I think for a guy who admitted that he was playing inside at the nickel for the first time, he handled himself quite well, acquitted himself quite well, and is somebody that if the Bears needed to in a pinch, I would not hesitate to bring him back just because he knows the defense. You know that you can stick him inside at nickel or on the boundary. That's valuable, especially when you're starting to mix and match pieces. You want to be able to remain flexible as possible. Nick McLeod might be the best mix of those things on this group because you know that he's done it. You know that he can do it in your defense, no less. Tre'Davious White does not have connections to this Bears staff, if I'm not mistaken. Former Buffalo Bill, 31 years old, 16 starts last year in 16 games, 40 total tackles, and 1 pick. Another guy that's probably going to want that starting spot. So, like, this is why I'm not going too deep in the corners. There's not a lot of depth corners that are inspiring, and the ones that have starting experience are probably going to want to start another on the next team as well. So, not a lot there. The depth options: Adoree Jackson, Fabian Moreau, Jeff Okudah, Michael Davis. Not a murderer's row of top tier talent, but could definitely get the Bears by in a pinch if, again, their quarterback situation deteriorates any further than it already has so far. Not bad yet. We'll see what happens with Terrell Smith. We know they're waiting on Kyler Gordon still, but it's still not bad yet at corner. Safety is the real concern right now. They're down 3 guys, or 2 guys rather, and have had to move another around. So we'll see what the Bears end up doing there. But a lot still to go, a long way to go still in the training camp. A lot can unfold both on offense and on defense, and we'll try to keep you up to date on all of it. That's going to do it for this episode of the Clocker Sports Podcast. Be sure to follow me on X and on Instagram at Joshy Buck. That's JOSHGBUCK. Check out the website at clockersports.com and follow the show on all our social media platforms on X, Instagram, on YouTube, TikTok, on LinkedIn at Clocker Sports. That's at CLOCKERSPORTS. And also read the stuff, heavysports.com, where I cover a variety of teams for the in the NBA and the NFL. And we'll be back with another episode of the Clocker Sports Podcast tomorrow after Bears practice. Josh Buchalter, Clocker Sports Podcast.